Good Wednesday morning, everybody. A little bit late this morning, and we're in a hurry. Moving on. Halfway through the working weekday, you see I'm sitting in the car. That's mainly because we're running a little bit late this morning. Don't know why. We got up at the usual time, just didn't bother getting ready. You know, it's like that, you know. Michelle's doing a few things, I'm not sure what she's doing. I think she's taking all the photographs off her camera from the wedding so that she can blend Amy the camera with a clean SD card in it. But anyway, halfway through the working week, I've had a cup of coffee. Well, I had 3/4 of a cup of coffee, and then we had to set off. And here comes Michelle now, so let's get on to work and start the working day. Speak to you shortly. Okay, guys, that's me at my work. I'm about to swap over to Michelle so she can get off to her work. As we're going uptown tonight.
Yeah.
If we ever get around this corner. I whinged that, you notice. Good at whinging traffic lately. I whinged that forklift truck out of the way yesterday. It's my superpower.
It's a good superpower to have.
It's my new superpower. Whinge traffic. Anyway, I'm here. This is where I have to get out and start work. Never mind. Moving on. Hi guys, that's the working day over with. And Michelle's just picked me up and I've decided to record a Hello, I'm Going Home because she's playing her music. Anyway, we're off up to town now to buy some deodorant.
No, we're not. We're going to Electric. Well, we are going to get deodorant as well, but we are going to Electric.
Get something to eat because I am absolutely starvation.
Have you any preference?
Not particularly, no. Did
No
I?
sushi!
No sushi. Did I pick last time?
I think I might have picked. Or did you pick?
I think I picked Wagamama's, didn't I?
Can we go to Wagamama again, actually? That was really good.
Yeah, if you want to. I don't mind. So, off up to the square then.
Oh, crap. Sorry, Mr. Biker.
Yeah, anyway. Family vlog. Moving on. As we decided to come back to Wagamama's. So what have you got?
Ginger chicken udon.
And?
What, fried greens?
Because they were good last time, weren't they?
Oh, yeah.
Whereas me is absolutely starving, I'm getting nothing. Okay, part of mine's come, my ribs, and...
Tori kariaji.
Easy for you to say. Okay, and I've got myself grilled duck bombery. That's how you pronounce it. Duck, egg and stuff. And look at this, guys, Teslas. Come to Union Square. How posh. Okay, in here I have Michelle having ideas about the station. Sitting in a Tesla.
It's a nice car, I must admit, but...
Not comfortable to get in and out of, are they?
No, they're not built for fat people. But it is nice. I still see that console would be really distracting while you're driving though. It's bigger than your iPod.
Maybe, but you've got to have it. Anyway, let's go and look at rucksacks. Okay guys, we're in Waterstones waiting for them to set up the lecture. Or the talk, it's not a lecture. The Cafe Sai.
The format of tonight's talk is a short, about half an hour talk, followed by a break and then an audience-led discussion. And our speaker tonight is Dr. Anne Ranacek from the Institute of Medical Sciences at the University of Aberdeen. Tonight's topic is electrical healing. Anne will be talking about how her research is helping to develop novel electrotherapies for repair of skin wounds and nervous system damage. So I'll hand over to Anne.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and thanks all of you for coming out on such a lovely spring evening. It's a lovely warm day. I'm really enthusiastic about that. So today I'm going to tell you about, the topic is called Electrical Healing Beyond Frankenstein. And I wanted to sort of take you on a trip through history and show you where the idea of electrotherapies have come from, and then show you where we are today and why it actually isn't crazy to think about this. So I have to talk about Ben Franklin. I'm an American, and he was one of the founding fathers of my nation. And he did, who here's heard about his famous kite experiment? When he went out on a rainy day, flew the kite, and the lightning struck the kite, that's right, and then he got the electrical jolt because the silk in the string was wet and it became a conductor. And of course you can see in this painting here, you can see that he's actually got a big choir of angels behind him, and if he'd actually been holding on to the string, that is exactly what had happened. He would have been sent straight up by the 10,000 volts or so that would have killed him. That obviously is not exactly how the experiment was done. He actually used the discharge that came down through the silk cord, and he put it into something called a Leyden jar, which is a capacitor. It allowed him to store the charge, and he could take it away and use it later whenever it was convenient. And he became very fond of using the discharge from the Leyden jars in what he called electric air baths. And so he was starting to use the idea that he could heal himself with electricity even in the early 1750s. He then, thankfully for all of us, invented the lightning rod. And his party trick was to hang the legs of frogs on a metal railing with a metal hook out in his back garden. And he noticed that when there was an electrical storm, that the legs would effectively dance. The muscles would twitch and the legs would dance during the lightning. Luigi Galvani is a bit of a scientific hero of mine. He invented the concept of animal electricity, where he found that if you took the cut end of a nerve from the spinal cord and you actually put it onto the muscle of the leg of the frog, he could get the twitching that was similar to what he was seeing in his back garden during lightning storm. So he made a connection that there must be electricity that was in the animal, and it had to be generated by the animal, because all this was with a pair of legs. There was no brain, there was no heart, this thing was not alive. And so of course, if you could use electricity to make frog legs dance, what else could you do with this? So in the early 1800s, the idea of galvanic reanimation was really popular. And I'm not sure how fond Galvani would be that his name was being used for this, but this is an experiment that was done in 1818 in Glasgow. And at that time, it was not unusual for criminals to be sentenced not just to public execution, but also to public anatomical dissection. And the guy you see lying on the table there, his name is Matthew Clydesdale. And before you feel too sorry for him, he was a brutal murderer. He was on his way home from the pub, and he challenged a couple of his mates to a race, and he lost the race, and he got really angry, and he happened to cross an old man and his boy on their way to work, and he murdered them. And so he was sentenced to death, and he was not as afraid of actually being executed as he was of the public anatomical dissection. And there are stories about how he tried to actually do himself in the night before, but sadly for him, he was executed in public in Glasgow. He was hanged, they drained all of his blood, he was well and truly dead. They put him on a cart, and then they rushed him off to the Anatomy Dissection Theatre in Glasgow. And you can see these two guys here. This is Professors Jaffrey and Ure, and they've got a little box behind them, which is a voltaic pile. It's an early form of battery, where they had two dissimilar metals put next to each other, stacked up with cardboard in between, and it was wetted with an electrolyte, some sort of salt solution. And it was effectively a battery. So then they took the electrodes and they put them on his diaphragm. And now he was breathing. I mean, this is a guy they saw hanged, they saw his blood drained out, and now he was breathing. He was making grimaces. But what really did them in was when they propped him up in a chair, and they put the electrodes on his arm raised up, and it looked like it was pointing at someone in the audience, and the place went bananas. And according to the report that was in the Scotsman newspaper, people were fainting and running away, and you can see this poor chap's got a really good reputation as being a cure-all, and it was really popular, so popular that these devices became portable. And when I was doing a talk on this topic a few years ago, I thought, I need a picture of one of these things. So I found this on eBay, this picture on eBay, and guess what? So I bought it. I've got it here. Unfortunately for you, it's broken and doesn't work. But you can imagine what would happen if you applied these to the offending parts of your body. And the instructions inside the lid tell us that it must not have been pleasant, because they advise using a wet sponge to make it less painful. So this was mostly quackery, right? People would be cured because they didn't want to come back. So what's the basis? Where do we come from here? I mean, this was clearly mostly crazy stuff. But nowadays, we've been able to look at the science behind this. And we now know that we can appreciate that our skin is a battery. In the 1950s, Hans Ussing proved this by looking at frog skin. And in frog skin, the frog skin is made up of individual cells, and it's a bit like a sheet of Lego. And each of the cells is one of the Lego blocks. And they're polarized. They can only be put together in one direction. And so, for example, on the sheet of Legos, the bumpy bits that are on the top, that part of each one of your skin cells, or at least in the frog, has sodium channels in it. So sodium from the pond water in which the frogs live would leak into the cells through these little bumpy bits on the top, through the sodium channels. Then on the bottom of on the flat bit of the Lego, you would have sodium potassium ATPase pumps. So these pumps actively take the sodium out of the cell and pump it into the actual frog. So you have a one-directional flow of sodium from the outside to the inside. So you end up with more sodium on the inside of the frog than you have on the outside. Sodium has a positive charge. There's more positive on the inside than on the outside. You can actually measure this by inserting an electrode into the skin, and you can measure a voltage across the skin with the inside positive. So effectively, Hans Ussing showed that the frog skin was about a 60 millivolt battery. And if you took enough of these things, took enough pieces of skin and put them in series together, you could light light bulbs and run small motors. It really is a battery. And your skin is not that much different. We made a pinprick wound and put the dermacorder over the wound, and I'll show you this little movie, so that the little nifty little camera inside actually takes a movie. And so as it scans over the surface, you can get an actual real-time readout. So here's in this blue line that you can see here, that's the voltage on the surface of the skin. And you can see that it's lower at the center of the wound than it is at the edges. So the center of the wound is more negative than at the edges. So the center of the wound is the cathode. So frog skin is a battery, your skin is a battery. And it's not just your skin, it's your stomach lining, your lining of your gut, wherever you have a tightly sealed epithelium that transports charged ions. So we know that this is useful for wound healing because because the center of the wound is a cathode, it acts like a compass. And it helps your cells find the center of the wound. So when you have a wound, the cells can read that cue and they can migrate in the correct direction to fill the hole. We also know that by giving, through some work that was done with collaborators in Aberdeen, some immunologists, if you give a pulse of an electrical stimulation to macrophages, the cells in your blood that help your wounds tidy up debris or bacteria or fungus or infection, if you give them a 1-hour pulse and then you sort of feed them the bacteria or the fungus or even plastic beads, they're much more efficient at cleaning them up. In order to repair function in the nervous system in this case, you need to get your nerve cells regrowing across that injury site and making functional connections on the other side to rewire the broken system. In the human spinal cord in 10 patients, and he left the implanted electrodes there for 15 weeks, and every 20 to 30 minutes he reversed the polarity. Because I've shown you they grow to the cathode, right? And they have to grow in both directions. So he figured if they grow in one direction, and we know they grow faster to the cathode than to the anode, they would grow fast, and then you would end up with a sort of net growth like this in both directions, so that you could regrow across the injured spinal cord. But what he found was that in all 10 of the patients that were fitted with the stimulators, there was sensory improvement. None of them got up out of their wheelchairs, but this was a phase 1 clinical trial aimed at looking at safety, and it was absolutely safe. So this is something that needs to be followed up on. And there's lots of room for improvement, things we can work with to think about how to move forward with that. And one of the things I'm doing in collaboration with my other colleagues who are working on spinal cord repair, we've got a little team that we've managed to put together, and part of that has come from money that's been given to the Development Trust by individual donors, and also by. So this is something that we're just beginning to look at and just beginning to understand. And you know, I think this is incredible because you know, newts can regenerate things. One of the reasons they can regenerate their arms, their legs, their tail, is that they have a lot of stem cells. We don't have so many in our limbs, and that's why we don't regenerate arms and legs when they fall off. But we have some regenerative ability. Humans, prepubescent humans, there was work that was done in the 1980s. You take your kids out to the supermarket, little Jimmy's got his hand on the car door and you accidentally slam it, right? Toddlers lose fingertips at an alarming rate. Children, that child, careful. Don't slam doors on their fingers. What happened was that in Illingworth and Barker in the mid-80s, Illingworth is a physician, and he measured the injury potential that I told you you can measure kind of with your tongue. He used a much more elaborate device. Measured the electrical potential leaving the fingertips of very young children and older children. It drops off as you get older. And instead of suturing the wound by sewing the flap of skin over, as is normally done, he left it open in one group of children and stitched it up in the other. And when it's stitched over, they did not regenerate their fingertips. They did not regenerate the nail bed. Whereas if you left it open with saline on it and sterile dressing, the children all regenerated their fingertips within 6 weeks. So the idea was that he was keeping the current loop going, and that was able to stimulate the regeneration. So there's a caveat there. It's only in very young children, and we can never regenerate a joint. So I think there's potential there that is untapped, and just as a way to follow up. We're not looking at Frankenstein here anymore. It may sound like it with the worms, but it really isn't. We're now beginning to have a real scientific understanding of what electricity is doing to cells and tissues. And
perfect, thanks. Okay, we'll get going with the questions. We've got 2 roving mics, so if you have a question, just pop your hand up and we'll come to you.
Good evening. I didn't want to go first, to be honest, but nevertheless. Thanks for the talk. You mentioned some interesting relationships about wound healing, particularly after my interest, regarding amphibians and small children. Is there any correlation, do you think, with TGF-beta balance of the 3 or 4 cytokines?
yeah, almost certainly. Certainly, even amphibians can do regeneration as well. I mean, they can regenerate their retina. They can regenerate when they're tadpole. If you chop the tip off their tail, they can regenerate their tail, but they cannot do it when they get older. So there's a certain age during which they can regenerate. There's a certain age during which we can regenerate. And the regeneration, the molecules used for regeneration, even in amphibians and adult amphibians, kinds of amphibians.
Does this relate to acupuncture and electroacupuncture? Is that the same but different?
Well, electroacupuncture is just you're inserting a pin, which is a wire, which is an electrode once you put an electric charge through it. So electroacupuncture is delivering an electric field. I don't really know, I haven't ever done any research in electroacupuncture. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence that it's effective. I can't really speak to that because I don't know enough about it. I wouldn't want to get it wrong. But yeah, that is delivering an electric field locally near the needle site. You have to worry, the one thing you need to worry about when you're using something that's a very focal field like that is that in order to get a field over a large area, you would need to apply a very large stimulus to that really tiny electric, to that pin. And so you would have a locally very high electric field, and that can cause damage to the tissue. So you need to get the balance right.
Okay guys, the lights have just changed. I'm going to have to pay attention, but that was a fantastic lecture, or talk, discussion, whatever.
It was really, really good. Really good. It was all about how they can use electric current to polarize and regenerate like nerves. They're using it to try and cure spinal injuries, where you've crushed the nerves and to cause the nerves to regrow across the scar tissue effectively.
Yeah, basically they started off the discussion saying that when they measure an open wound, this is where I'll get it wrong way around, cathode and anode. When they measure an open wound, they actually see an electrical current. There's a cathode and an anode.
Yeah.
And I think the negative is your cathode, which is the centre of the wound. So they think that electrical current is, that flow of electrical current is what's stimulating your cells to go to that area and fix the problem. So they're taking that one step further, because what they're saying is that all your skin and
you're basically one big battery.
You're a battery, yeah. So what they're doing is taking it one step further and trying to regrow basically spinal injuries, nerve cells. Not necessarily spinal injuries, but nerve cells. But that lady there was concentrating on spinal injuries.
Because that's her field of research.
So what they're saying is they will build a scaffold across the wound, across the cyst area, and they will try and grow nerve cells up the scaffold, and they'll pack that area with stem cells and get the stem cells to regenerate the nerve cells. They said they're having some success, far more success than they used to have. Still a long way off it, because they can get the nerves to actually grow into this nice environment that they make for them, but they can't get them to grow out and attach to the other side. So that's the next challenge. And there's also shortly a plaster coming on the market, which is a battery, which they say will heal wounds faster.
Yeah, it gets once it gets wet, it acts as a conductor, and it will allow your flesh and knit together quicker.
And one thing I was amazed at, little kids who take the top of the finger off, they can regrow the fingertips. Mm-hmm. Can't grow a joint, but they can regrow the fingertip. I've forgotten his name now. Somebody actually did an experiment with that. He said there's a lot of kids get the fingertips cut off, and cardos usually. So there's a lot of them injuries, and one guy took the children and he changed the way that he stitched up the wound. Instead of stitching it over, he kind of created a hollow tube and kept it wet and whatever, and they grew back the fingertips.
But you can only do that up to a certain age, which is why at the age of 11, when my sister went at me with a pair of kitchen scissors to this finger, I had to have stitches while my fingertips knitted back together, because she practically took off the tip of my finger.
Well, I've taken it off the tip. I took my fingertip off at work once, and I had awful trouble with that for a long time. I've got scarring, which is quite a lot reduced to when I did do the wound. I did cut myself, but the nerves back now. I don't get that problem in the cold when it's all tingly. I reckon that your nerves will grow about a millimetre a week, did she say? And they actually do grow back, and that's what they're doing. They're figuring out how to stimulate that growth in areas where it doesn't grow,
like in spinal cord
injuries.
injuries.
Yeah, to try and they've actually succeeded with a guy from Holland, very well documented. They succeeded, but the reason that they succeeded with him is because it was a very specific injury. It was a very clean cut.
They did say that they were doing first-in-man trials in America, where they actually inserted like a
Scaffold.
No, like a battery, and then reversed the polarity every 30 minutes.
Yeah, to grow.
To grow nerves.
And they get some feeling back.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, extremely fascinating. Been a fantastic little trip out. Wagamamas. Didn't crash on that corner. Wagamamas. And bought a book.
Yeah, you bought a book.
About space. Not the space in me between my ears. No space up there.
Yeah, you bought a book about space. I got a new dress. You saw Amy.
Yeah, but I forgot to vlog that bit. Mainly because I didn't have my camera on me at the time.
No, it was in my bag.
So, anyway, with that, I think we better get on home. It's still quite warm, isn't it? It's just the temperature. It's 16 degrees here. At,
8:30.
8:30. That's coolio. Anyway, well, it's very muggy as well, so you can see that storm's coming, can't you? So it must be horrendous down the road. I'm glad I'm not down the road. Anyway, with that, moving on. Okay guys, that's us nearly home now. It's just back at 9 o'clock now. So that's date night over. You enjoyed date night?
I did, it was really good.
See, I'd take it to all the best places. Wagamamas and a lecture on nervous systems. What can I say? Yeah. I was just wondering why he was driving around that field. He's a farmer. Okay, anyway, like I said, we're nearly home now, so it's kind of time to call it a vlog for today. That's halfway through the working week done. Thursday tomorrow, Friday Eve. It's coming around pretty quick, hasn't it? That's for me, anyway. And I've still not achieved anything at work this week. Never mind. But with that, I think it's time to call it anyway. So, it's a good night from me.
It's a good night from him.
Good night. See you all tomorrow, Friday.